It's the future. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. It's the future. It's the future. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
Pan-African and revolutionary greetings. I am Mama D.
And I'm Brother Tokes Adewale.
And this is the Africa Must Unite podcast. And we are the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, PRSP. Yes. we are happy to be with you again. Our 83rd Africa Must Unite podcast. And we are happy, this time especially because I think we are getting to one of the, if not the most important thing, I think, for African people to consider. But let me start off by saying, Tokes, as you know, all of our Africa Must Unite podcasts are guided by the content of our annual calendars. And the focus, the themes of our calendar are guided by what the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party perceives as the most pressing issue confronting our people globally, the most pressing issue standing in the way of our liberation. And this year, perceiving the need for our people to unite around one theory, one ideology, in order to move more effectively and quickly bring about our liberation, Pan-Africanism, our focus is on Nkrumaism. It's the ideology that we believe should unite all African people, shining the way forward to our liberation. And so, I say that this particular podcast goes straight to that theme. Because this month, November 2024, we focus on a paramount obstacle preventing our achieving liberation. And that's the necessity of monolithic ideological unity. So we're going to give that some discussion this morning. But as always, we'll start off with a few important dates in our history as African people and the history of other progressive revolutionary people.
And in the month of November, we have a number of dates. I'll just point out a few. So, for example, Shirley Graham Du Bois was a great Pan-Africanist. She was born this month on November 11th in 1896. She was the wife of W.B. Du Bois, and she was just a very powerful woman before she met Du Bois and after Du Bois passed. She was involved in Pan-Africanism on so many levels, and so we want to celebrate her birthday. And then there's another one. There's so many in the month of November. Of course, Kwame Ture, the great formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, very unfortunate, he passed on this day, this month rather. That's November 15th, in 1998. And Kwame Ture was such an outstanding Nkrumahist and did so much to advance the cause of Pan-Africanism and Nkrumaism.
He sure did.
Yeah, and then of course on the 26th of November, passing the death of the great Sojourner Truth. That was on November 26th in 1883. And honestly, she was a great spokesperson for anti-slavery and took no prisoners. She was an amazing orator and just a very principled woman.
Yes.
Yeah, so we want to celebrate her life as well.
Well, we got some real warriors in the month of November. There's no doubt about it. In just about every date in the month of November is filled. So, we only have time to mention a few dates. But if anybody wants a calendar, I know it's November, but still, if you want it just for the information, you can email us. We'll give you that email address and we can send you one online. There's no problem at all. Free. It'll be a free calendar that we send you online because it is just something in terms of our people and the struggle they waged to help liberate us. There's no doubt about it. So, I guess I'll move on to what we wrote in November for our November focus, the necessity of monolithic ideological unity. And in our calendar, we wrote this. In order to defeat the enemies of Africa, Africans globally must move as one unified people. Unity, however, presupposes organization. In other words, in order to unite our people, we must organize them. This is because an essential part of organizing our people includes the political education of our people. There is no substitute to raising the political consciousness of our people, providing them with the political tools that are necessary in identifying who we are as Africans and the goals and objectives we should be pursuing. One unified socialist Africa. And this process toward monolithic ideological unity will ensure united thought and action, enabling us to overcome any and all obstacles that we face. That, Tokes, is what we wrote for our November theme of our calendar. That's what we wrote for this month of November. And now we'd like to go on and into a little more detail about how important it is for us, we who are Pan-Africanists, to agree on and commit to the ideology that will ensure our success in building a unified socialist Africa. So, I guess, Tokes, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I want to ask this very important question. And you've written a lot on it. And I always refer to things that you've written. It's been inspiring and insightful for me. So I'm asking this question. Can you begin by explaining what we mean by the term ideological unity?
Great. Thank you, Mama D, for your kind words and inspiring words. Yeah, it's our energies have to be harnessed and galvanized and amalgamated into one movement, and there's nothing better that can do that than monolithic ideological unity. We want the people to think together, to think alike, not as if we're just we don't have any different variety of thoughts, but the basic common goals and objectives and strategy, who we are. That's what a monolithic ideological unity should tell us, who we are, what we are up against, who is our enemy, what are we fighting for. All that's very important. And the monolithic ideological unity should be not just based on myth and superstition and hearsay and feeling, but it should be scientific. It should be dialectical. It should be materialist. When we have those principles guiding us, then when we are faced with any kind of condition, we'll all be thinking the same way. So, for example, the ideology should be dialectical. And so Malcolm X, for example, was very dialectical. He always would say, if you can't understand what's going on in Mississippi or Georgia, unless you also understand what's going on in the Congo. Because we face the same conditions, basically. Slavery, we've all been impacted by slavery. The whole continent, the whole global Africa, wherever we are, have been affected by the slave trade and colonialism. And so since we have the same conditions, by all means, we'll be thinking the same way. And but unfortunately, our thinking has been confused by the enemy, especially with its media and its educational institutions. And so despite having this same condition, this same historical background, this same historical enemy exploiting us and oppressing us, we haven't been thinking the same when in fact we should. And so this is what the monolithic ideological unity is for, so we can move in the same way. And so we want an ideology that integrates, assimilates, refines all previous thought. Because again, Africans have been suffering from the same thing. And so if you look at the history of our thought, which is where ideological unity comes from, we all have been saying the same thing. So we want it to be integrated, assimilated, digested, and refined into one system. And then Nkrumaism is that system. It's universal, and it's a necessary prerequisite to ensuring that our movement is one. And so when we see anything in the world, we all will interpret it the same way, and we'll know what to do the same way. So that's my understanding, Mama D, of monolithic ideological unity.
That's a real clear explanation of it, Tokes. Appreciate it. And you hit upon those things that we often call out. We have the same identity, the same enemy. Our objective is the same. We want to free ourselves. The whole idea of philosophy that's going to help us see how things work in the world, the material and the cultural and everything that plays a part in our understanding of how forces move in the world. And we always talk about it being philosophical consignism, using the tool of dialectical and historical materialism and the understanding of science, but applying it to our condition as an African people, applying it to our history, our culture, our current reality. And we need the same strategy. All those things you're saying that put us on the same page, and then understanding what our tactics are. So those kinds of things that you mentioned that we need to understand, and the best teacher that we have to help us understand that is revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations. As the name reflects, it's getting to every aspect of what we need to know and learn to move forward. So,
and you mentioned an important word, that's culture. Also, we could talk about it, that the ideology, it won't be monolithic unless it's derived from the cultural heritage of the people. And our cultural heritage is very, very common, very similar. And so this is why the ideology should be Nkrumaism, because it reflects the cultural heritage of the African people.
That's a real good point, Toes, because we often say, we're not Marxist-Leninists because our history is not a European history. We're not Maoist because our history is not Asian history. Our history is African history, so we can use the same tools. We can understand how the world works, the world view of how things move, how things are connected, that everything and everyone is connected, that that whole interconnectedness, that there's a quantitative buildup that leads to a qualitative change. We can use all those scientific tools in common. but we cannot share a history that we don't have. Our
Exactly.
history is African history. Our culture is African culture, and our current reality is unique to us, and that means our objective has to be uniquely ours. That's going to take us from where we are to our liberation.
So, Mama D, can I follow up with a second question for you?
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Well, because our theme, the theme of our calendar 2024, and all of our podcasts this year has been Nkrumaism, shining the way forward through the crisis in today's African world. Can you explain how Nkrumaism shines a light on the necessity for monolithic ideological unity among global Africans?
I think I can. You put me on the spot. I think I can try. Based on what we know, and really picking up on what we just was discussing. Nkrumaism. If we think about Nkrumaism, it's a name we've given to ideology that was significantly developed. As you mentioned, Tokes, refined from what previous Africans had done for us and taken to a whole nother level. And so we name our ideology Nkrumaism. And if you go look back at all the things he said, and the fact that, until he died, in fact, he was dying in Bucharest, and still his concern was and in pain, awful pain. But his focus, and he was still working on Revolutionary Path and writing the prefix for Revolutionary Path. There's no one who has done as much for the African Revolution, for Pan-Africanism. When you do that study, then Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And so it's befitting to name the ideology Nkrumaism. And when you look at what he did, he consistently gave advice regarding the need for African people worldwide to come together based on a shared ideological unity. He's the one who taught us and talked about ideological unity. And one point in Consciencism on page 58, in regard to the purpose of an ideology, he wrote, an ideology aims at uniting the actions of millions toward specific and definite goals. And then he says again on 78 in the same work, Consciencism, when speaking of the need to accommodate all of our experiences, as you had talked about earlier, as African people, including our Euro-Christian and our Islamic, as well as our traditional African experiences, and we can add any experience that we have had since he wrote Consciencism. He writes, what is called for as a first step is a body of connected thought. The alternative, he writes, will mean that we are, quote, racked by the most malignant schizophrenia, end quote. In Neocolonialism, page 253, he speaks of the necessity to forge such a unity in order to defeat colonialism. He wrote, quote, unity is the best requisite for destroying neocolonialism. And this theoretical advice that Nkrumah always gave, I mean, we can go on and on with quotations, but we won't do that. But this theoretical advice was coupled with practical advice in his call for an all-African committee for political coordination, the AACPC. He stated that, quote, the formation of a political party linking all liberated territories and struggling parties under a common ideology will smooth the way for eventual continental unity. And so even folks think about today, although today we may think of only a few, if any, territories in Africa that can be said to be truly liberated. We know all about the neo-colonial puppets that are, dominating our homeland. Still, this advice is invaluable for political parties throughout global Africa and throughout, we say global Africa. That means all of us on the motherland. That's right, and outside of the motherland. It would certainly be. Oh, go ahead, Toad.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I can see that taking root in these Sahel nations who are trying to pull together something like that. This Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. I could see them adopting something like that out of necessity to fight the enemy. So what Nkrumah wrote years ago is still so relevant. It could be applied right to those countries right there. Just to begin with those. But as you mentioned, it should be global Africans. So wherever we are, we get a liberated area, we should form that same action committee.
No, that is so true. I mean, because when he's talking about that AACPC, he's talking about that monolithic ideological unity that needs to be present. And he's saying that in 1968. Probably before, because the book, Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, is published in 1968. So he's writing, before the publication. So, how many years is that he's called for this kind of ideological unity? And what would it have meant if we had heeded his words? Look at what's happening now. We almost could say, or I'll speak for myself. We're worse off our motherland today than in 1968. That's a horrible thing. And so we can't help but think, Toast, that if we had heeded his words back then in terms of a unified socialist Africa, oh man, we would be seen all over the world. We'll have the power. We always use that kind of formula, that land that belongs to us, Africa, equals wealth, equals power, equals respect, equals liberation. So, I mean, and of course, it would raise us all up to see ourselves as a beautiful, intelligent people, just like China's closing its doors and raised itself up. Isn't that right? Toast. And now what you think of China is different from what you thought of them when you talked about the 1800s when you said you didn't stand a Chinaman's chance in hell of doing anything. That recovery of our land base, wow, would mean so much.
New day in China.
Yes, a whole different day. We are paying the price of the consequences of really not listening to our forebears, and we single out Osadifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. We're so thankful for him. We're still learning in terms of all that he did, dedicated his life. Even when he was a student in Lincoln, I know I digress, but Christine Johnson, who knew him back then when he was a student at Lincoln, she said she would see him sometimes in Harlem or somewhere, University of Pennsylvania. And she would say he would be one of the youngest people in the room. And he would say something. She said everybody would be listening. And this is a young man, who was still, focusing on his PhD and all of that during the time. But his commitment,
all that attention.
Oh man, to the African Revolution, is tremendous. And so we say, just to revisit the point of this November focus, we so need monolithic ideological unity And Toast, I don't know. This sister told me one time when we were in Portsmouth, Virginia. She said, we don't have to belong to the same organization in order to come together in unity. And that was it. And that took me aback because at the time we were thinking, come on into my organization. Come on. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you agree with that point, but we can be in different organizations, at least at this point, but share a common ideology.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's what we have to do because everybody's just not going to be able to join the same organization at this point. But I think if we fight for Pan-Africanism as the objective, we'll end up in the same with the same thought pattern. So yeah, I think you just got to join an organization working for revolutionary Pan-Africanism. I think that's plenty at this point.
That is major. That's a major step forward. So this is why I think we said when we thought about this particular focus for November that this is one of, if not the paramount issue that is something that we need to conquer as we move forward. That just the idea of being, like my mama used to say, on the same page, moving forward, ideological unity. So we know who our enemy is. We know who we are. We African people. We know our enemy, capitalism, and all of its manifestations. We know who our enemy is. And we know that the only way we can truly realize true liberation is through a unified socialist Africa. That's major, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Toast, all throughout 2024, at times with the help of invited guests, we have one more month. Our focus has been on Nkrumaism, shining the way forward through the crisis in today's African world. And
next month, we hope you'll join us for December. We'll be discussing Organize the Masses, build the All-African Committee for Political Coordination.
So
that's
that's going to give even more detail and focus on the AACPC. That is going to be one I don't think we want to miss. So hopefully you'll join us next month for our December podcast. Meanwhile, visit our website, especially, if you want a free calendar, you can visit our website, PanAfricanRevolutionarySocialistParty.org. But especially, probably the quickest way is to email us at panafricanrsp@gmail.com. You can always like us on SoundCloud to get the podcast going all the way back some years. Visit us on YouTube.
And remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-Africanist socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
gotta move. Yeah. Time for a new revolution. Yeah. We gotta move. Yeah. It's time to do it. This trauma turn trauma put together. Rewrite the mission statement. Regardless who's doing the shooting, we gotta stop doing ourselves on the pavement. And if we don't get it ourselves, then we can't be mad when we don't receive the paper. We come too far for our seat to continue to look back and say that's the way it went. That's just 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 the way it went.
Just watching the vehicle doing donuts at the end of Euclid Road, south of 45, west of the rail yard there. Looks like he's gonna run.
They're coming through, and they done it for you. But we know the truth. So we make it move. Why they being the blind? We going straight to the top. So we gotta move in the same direction. Yeah. We gotta move. Yeah. Time for a new revolution. Yeah. We gotta move, 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 yeah.